Hello, you fuckheads and retards, and welcome to another edition of News of the Day. I'm your host, and this is a show where we talk about what's happening in the world, and sometimes we even put a biblical slant on it. And so let's get started right away. The first story that's really kept me intrigued are the rape gangs in the UK and how the government swept it under the rug because most of the rape gangs were Pakistani men, and I'm really fascinated with this Tommy Robinson, who's currently in prison, and he's big right now in the UK, and people are even talking about him in America. He's one of these working class guys who's been talking about this problem for years and years and years, and the progressive libtards have smeared him as a racist and have made his life hell. He spent a lot of time in prison because of for telling the truth, basically, right? So I he's a big topic on Piers Morgan. Piers Morgan has a show on YouTube, and Piers is a Ponce Englishman with a fantastic education who grew up on the right side of the tracks and knows how to use his pinky finger when he's sipping tea with his mummy. He's one of those types, and he really hates Tommy Robinson. And he's warning all us stupid Americans about Tommy's bad character. Why? Because, Tommy is an Islamophobe. And it's really strange, Lo, because Tommy does say a lot of bad stuff about Islam. But let me tell you something. Who Piers was buddies with was Christopher Hitchens. There was no bigger Islamophobe, and I say that in quotations, than Christopher Hitchens. You remember Chris Hitch? That's what they used to call him, Hitch. And some of the stuff he said about Islam was pretty bad. True, but pretty bad all the same. And but that was okay with Piers. That was fine with Piers because Hitch, Christopher Hitchens, had the right education and spoke in the way an Englishman is supposed to speak, right? And went to the best schools and even worked for Piers Morgan when Piers was in charge of one of the newspapers. I believe it was The Guardian over there. And not Hitch. Hitch is dead. He died a while back from cancer. But there's another guy that Piers likes called Douglas Murray, and Douglas is also an Islamophobe, with the quotations again, who says a lot of worse things than Tommy Robinson ever said. But again, he has that upper crust lisp that all Englishmen of that breed have. Good breeding, I guess you could say. And he's gone to the right schools, and he knows when to say who or whom. So that's a big deal to Piers. But if you're a working class guy, boy, you better know your place and shut your mouth. Then that's my take on it. And so lately on his show, Piers has been trashing Tommy, saying stuff like, Tommy cheated on a mortgage application. And I looked into it. It's a crime without any victims. Tommy's brother-in-law applied for a loan, told the bank he made £20,000 a year when he's only making 12. They bought an old property. They fixed it up. They flipped the house. The bank got paid. Tommy's brother-in-law got paid, made a little profit, and it was one of those crimes without a victim. Everybody ended up happy. The person who sold the house, the person who bought the house, and the banks, they all ended up happy. Kind of a process crime, the kind of crime you only go after the person when you want to just rip off their nipples because they did something you didn't like. That kind of thing. And another thing that Piers brought up about Tommy Robinson was he was a soccer hooligan. I wish I wish the Americans would know that. Well, let me tell you something, Piers. You know the culture, and I know the culture. My mom's from Glasgow. I've been to I've been to Glasgow, and you know how working class people are when it comes to their soccer teams. They're crazy. I admit it, they're crazy. But it's just not this guy. It's the whole island. Let me tell you, bastards, a story about my trip to Glasgow one time. My uncle, he's a real soccer hooligan, I guess you could say. He's getting too old for that shit now, but he was. And his whole life, back then anyway, was the Glasgow Rangers, one of the big teams in Scotland, right? And one Saturday, him and his wife and their two kids took me along, and we went. It was in the summer, so the season wasn't going on. And we parked outside Ibrox Stadium. And I guess they were practicing. So my uncle takes his two kids to go get autographs. Me, what the hell do I care? I stayed in the car, all right? And then my aunt, his wife, was in the back seat. So we're sitting there, and one of the soccer players comes out. He's got his gym bag, and he's wearing his shorts. You know, he's one of the players. I don't know who the hell he is. What the hell do I know about the Glasgow Rangers, right? So my aunt she can whistle. I can't whistle, but she makes that sexy whistle. Woo, woo, like that through her, it was an actual whistle. Woo, woo, like he's a sexy boy. So the guy turns, and he looks at me, and I look at him. And this mask of hate comes over his face. And he starts marching toward the car because he's going to kick my ass for making a sexy whistle. And we both got lucky that day, me and that guy. Well, anyway, before I get to the lucky part, he's approaching the car to kick my ass. He's going to teach me a lesson. He thinks I'm one of the fans. And suddenly my aunt sits up, and he sees her. And she starts laughing. She didn't know that the guy was going to kick my ass. And he finally realizes it, and he turns around and he walks away. Now I'm going to tell you, we both got lucky that day. Because my hand was on that door handle, and I was about to climb out onto the sidewalk and give him a beating. Because I don't give a shit who he is. I don't know him. I don't know any of these soccer players. To me, he's just a civilian. He was biting off a little bit more than he could chew. I was younger back then, and I'm a young American. I'd have kicked his ass. But it would have been unlucky for me, because you know what's going to happen if you beat the shit out of a Glasgow Ranger in the middle of Glasgow with these soccer crazy fans? I'd have had to been running to the airport. They would have killed me. That's the culture. My point is that Tommy Robinson's a soccer hooligan. Piers knows that they're all soccer hooligans, the working class in England and Scotland. Every single one of them's a soccer hooligan. They'll beat you up for wearing the wrong colors in a bar. If you go into a bar in Glasgow and it's a Rangers bar and you're wearing green, at least when I was there, they'd kick the shit out of you. So, and the same, if you go into a Celtic bar and you got orange, at least when I was there, they'd beat the shit out of you. So anyway, they're all like that. So that argument's gone too. And Piers knows that, His last argument against Tommy Robinson was the seriousness of the contempt of court. He has 2 or 3 contempts of court. That's because he refuses to keep his mouth shut. He believes in what he's standing for, and he's not going to keep his mouth shut. Anyway, I'm going to tell you guys this. If you go to Twitter, and if you press in "silenced" by Tommy Robinson, there's a documentary. He made a documentary. It's an hour and 45 minutes. I would encourage you all to go over there and watch it. It's fascinating. It'll spin your head. It's that good. In fact, I will say this. If you refuse to watch it, it probably means that you're a fag. Plain and simple. All right? It's must-see TV. You must go watch it. Anyway, that's my spiel for today. But before I go, I want to tell you guys this. I know a lot of you don't read because perhaps you have a low IQ. And don't feel bad. Me too. I have a low IQ also. But I've written 4 books, believe it or not. Give them a try. There, go to Amazon and press in Filthy Beast Korea. There'll be a book that pops up by the White Buffalo. Then I wrote 2 books about my adventures in China. Filthy Beast China, parts 1 and 2. I also written a horror novel called The Demon and the Doll, and that's by Jack Wood, double D at the end of Wood. Give it a try if you want to. If you got, I think each book's like $5 for the digital copy. All right, so you got $5 lying around. Why not give it a try? Anyway, God bless you, and I'll see you later. Bye bye.